Boa tarde e bem-vindos uma vez mais ao Check-in Tourism, o podcast e o vodcast da Escola de Hotelaria e Turismo do Porto. Hoje é com muito gosto que eu tenho aqui comigo o Christopher, que é nosso aluno do curso de Culinary Arts. Christopher, thank you so much for your time, and I was just forgetting something. Como o Christopher é de origem norte-americana, o resto da entrevista será conduzido em inglês. So, Christopher, I was just explaining that the rest of our interview will be held in English now. Okay?
Obrigado.
So, yeah. Quite welcome. So, thank you so much for your availability. As usual, I would like to start to ask you something funny that happened to you related with EHTP here or before. I know you have like let's say a small adventure. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So thanks for asking. It's been a lot of work here, so there hasn't been a lot of comical moments. However, I have to go back to when I first arrived to Porto for school, which was a week prior to classes, and I moved into an unfurnished apartment. And I will just say it was quite challenging. I became acquainted with the floor, and
Okay.
it was really kind of tough for me for 3 days until I was able to find where to purchase an air mattress and get things such as essentials as a cup to drink out of.
Okay.
So I would just say personally going through that evolution provided a lot of reflection and appreciation for having some of the simple things like a cup.
But nowadays everything is okay?
Oh, I have the best items,
Okay.
IKEA items that money can buy.
Okay, very well.
Thank you.
Very well. And Christopher, I know that you work for the state of California related to taxes.
Yes.
So, and I would like to ask you what prompted that change in your life? What motivated you to move from tax to culinary arts?
Yes, thank you. I did tax policy for more than 30 years with the state of California, and I will say my passion has resided in food, culinary arts, whether preparing it or eating it.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point in my life where I understood that I'm not promised a long time. So really the question was, if not now, when? Going through, coming out on the other side of the pandemic, having some personal health issues really brought that to light. And so it was really a situation where I couldn't go another day without doing what was in my spirit and what was in my heart to do for me. And so it was a great leap to transition. I arrived with 4 pieces of luggage. And here I am to start a new beginning. And I can't think of a better place to do it than at EHTP.
Very well. Thank you so much for that. And I would like to share with you, I don't know if you know, and even with some of our followers, that it's very interesting that some of our students are similar to Christopher. So they come a point in their life where they choose to follow their passion. We have here architects as well, lawyers, designers. So
Yes.
it's quite interesting to see that sooner or later, people decide, okay, now I'm going to follow my passion.
Yes.
So it's nice to see these kind of examples. So, and I think it takes courage to take that leap. And in your case, it was quite a big leap from the United States to Portugal.
Oh, definitely,
So,
definitely. Just maneuvering the process for the visa, finding a place to live, and all those things. I will say, though, that the welcoming structure that you all have put together has kind of made some of those other not so appealing elements pale, because really what's driving me is the passion, and what's driving the others is we want to be someplace. And those obstacles, whether big or small, or just that they're speed bumps, we're going to get through them because we're going somewhere. And so, as we talk about the type of person who will thrive in this environment, it really needs to be somebody who's focused, who can accept a challenge, who's willing to work hard, because those are the elements that are going to have that person's dreams and goals come to fruition.
And what attracted you to culinary arts? What are the aspects of culinary arts that motivate you for this major change in your life?
Yeah. So let me start, and I'll share this.
Yeah.
I have a little picture in my loft here, and it is a picture of my grandmother's stove. And that is the first stove that I cooked on when I was 5 years old. It was the best fried bologna sandwich I could make. I have that picture, and it travels with me, and I see it every day when I walk out the door. it has been that flame, that flame that just needed a spark to fully ignite. I think I will assume, much like myself, those people coming from other walks of life, career backgrounds, food is still something that we engage with daily since we were born. It brings about memories, it brings about events. And once you get to a certain place like myself, turning 50 years old, having been in an industry for so long, at some point there's that transition where the passion overtakes the need for money and more, right? You also have to understand that my backdrop is one that is steeped in capitalism and having more, and that's okay, just keep working, just keep working. Well, at some point I had to make a personal decision for myself to say, life is more about work and about the work that you do. And for me, what's driving that goal on the other side is to make a difference in the world, right? So you take this concept as food that I think we can all understand within the concept of our culture or our backgrounds. Then you take the level that EHTP provides in delving down, getting into the weeds, understanding this concept that food is produced and it is prepared and it is served. Well, we live in this big world. How do we use food and culinary arts as a platform to engage and change the world and make it a better place? And really, that's really my goal, to make the world a better place through food, one bite at a time, right? It is one of the things that can bring people together. Rarely do we have people up in arms about food. You may want a buffet today, and I might want something else. However, we can come to terms and find that and hopefully engage in dialogue, conversation, and exchange, human being to human being, that we left that eating event better than we entered.
Yeah, because picking up the word food and the, how can I say this, family gatherings. So
Yes.
normally it's around the table, and so nice, or normally nice memories that we have
Yes.
from our present and
Yes.
past. So yeah, it's quite how can I say this, interesting, and as a link that we all, let's say an experience that we all share in different ways in different places. But yeah. I think that I also like that you mentioned is that life should be more than work. So life should be life in first place and work in second.
Yes, yes. And I think, we use a saying, if you're doing something that you're really passionate about, then it's really not work.
Yeah.
And I feel really blessed to be in that position where I'm really able to do something. It is meaningful, yet I am blessed to get up every day to come to the school, and I say play with food, but to work with food and to work with other people who are as passionate about it as myself. I've been sharing with my friends and family that I found my tribe, right? People who don't mind sitting down talking hours on end about food. People who aren't as interested in food as I am, they kind of get a little bored of it and they're like, yeah, okay, go on, what on? What's going on with the stock market? Wait, let's go back to the food,
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfectly understandable. And Christopher, what are your plans? So after you graduate here at our school, what's your plans? What do you hope to?
Yeah. So I don't have them necessarily in concrete, but I think I have a general idea. One is I consider EHTP as the first step of my culinary education. It doesn't, I'm sure we're going to be perhaps in this room at some point and get a nice certificate of completion.
Yeah.
That's the completion of the first step for me, that my education will continue, whether here in Porto or Portugal, through contacts that I've made while here, or elsewhere abroad through maybe picked up through my externship.
Mm-hmm.
So my next step is definitely to get in the kitchen and start to apply some of the skills that I've learned here. Ultimately, I think I'm very interested in culinary journalism, specifically a travel food type television show that highlights a specific gastronomy around the world. For example, I could see myself now having mastered Portuguese, a show here in Porto called Eat Porto, where we go out and we highlight these restaurants, the fine cuisine, right? Some of the students, I'm sure, are going to transition out to open restaurants. How do we stay connected as an institution, EHTP? Where are they now, right? I don't know. I'm just coming up with ideas, where are they now? What are they doing? Let's go talk to them. Let's bring them into people's living rooms so they can see that manifestation of the good work that's being produced here. Where are they in the world? And it brings it home and close for us. So I'm really interested in that. And then taking some cues from one of my favorite chefs, Jose Andres, in World Kitchen. Network creates a synergy for resources to help feed people. If I can feed, as one chef, 10 people, then arguably 2 chefs can feed 20. And then as you create that, you create a community that has significant impact by feeding people healthy meals, nourishing meals, and closing that gap of where people don't have enough food to eat.
I'll just share with you, I don't know if you had the opportunity to be present, but we had a couple of days ago a lecture on biological agriculture that they will mention, for example, the dangers we are incurring because of the number of chemical treated products that we introduce in our daily, food habits, and it was very interesting and related to that. So there's a major change we need to do. And speaking about this nutrition evolution, what kind of evolution do you think it will happen within 10 years in the food, specifically in the culinary arts trade industry?
Good question. As I think about it, I think we have to start with the foundation. When it comes to food, as a consumer of food, as the diner, I think there are some things that won't change. We still want good food, right? It must taste good. We still want the value for the food, understanding that there's more money that you pay, but are you getting what you pay for? Also, we want, I think, the people producing the food to embrace a certain level of social responsibility, maybe touching back into this the
lecture
you were talking about,
agriculture.
But I think there's some things on the forefront that is going to change maybe the expediency or how we receive the food. For me, the real thing is I've seen the evolution and the impact that social media platforms has had on the brick and mortar restaurant, right? I'm used to delivery only being for pizza or Chinese food. Now you have Michelin star restaurants who are delivering food to someone's door, right? Through these other vehicles, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Bolt has an eating platform, right? So I see, my crystal ball is kind of in the shop right now. It's a little fuzzy, but I think we're going to get more into that. And it's going to be balancing what I call the microwave generation. I want it now, put it in, press a button, bing, with the quality and experience that fine diners may be used to in the brick and mortar as those demands will increase and become more ingrained in our life. And I always say it's difficult to, we eat every day, right? And we have these little devices, these little phones, and we use them for everything, for doctor, for banking, for whatever, these very important things in our lives. So then it becomes, to me, difficult to understand why it wouldn't apply to something as food that we do every day. I think it's going to be a balance of the technology and the availability of food that we're going to see a transition.
Very well. We are almost at the end of our interview, Christopher.
Yes.
And you already mentioned that, but can you share the main reasons why you would recommend the EHTP to a young man or woman such as yourself?
Yes. I tell you, if you wake up and you have that desire or you have that feeling that this is what I want to do. Granted, that is a personal decision. I had that fire and it started to burn really intense about 5 years ago, but then you don't know where to start. I found EHCP on a Google search, and it happened to be coupled with a timing that a friend was coming to Portugal. I didn't think about Portugal, and it all came together. But if you have that, know one, that there are school here, curriculum here to help you. You need to take the first step and reach out. We met a year ago. I came to tour the campus to get a better understanding, to get a better feel. And I will say that what was presented then has been the same to starting the course now. There's a lot of fidelity in what you present and what you receive. One, take the first step. Be serious and start to plan. Coming here is a process. If you're American like myself, the process is a little bit more lengthy and protracted. You're going to have to go through the visa process and those things. So please be prepared for that, to hang in there and to see it through. It can be rather daunting, but I encourage you. You're going to have that drive. Also, I'm in a class with about 20 people, male, female, young, old, and we represent, all these places from around the world. So if you are interested in expanding your cultural awareness or diversity through your peer group, it would be another amazing thing. I have people from the country of Georgia, Bangladesh, India, Russia, all parts of Portugal, Cape Verde, all in one room with one mission and an exchange of ideas, the exchange of perception and perspective as we apply to culinary arts, I think is great. I will say we've entered rainy season. Pack your raincoat, or if you have webbed feet like a duck, you might be okay. But other than that, I think those are the type of people that should be here. And there's a challenge. There's classroom work to do. Yep. There's practical hands-on. I thought I could cut a carrot in a square until I had a master chef of 30 plus years look at it and say, rubbish. Very humbling in what the expectation is. EHTP is not short on expectation for those who are coming here to get education and represent them in the field. So the standard is high. Be willing and ready to work.
Ok, Christopher, thank you so much for the interview, for your testimony.
Yes.
E para todos os que nos acompanharam em mais este episódio, vemo-nos no próximo. Até breve.